Welcome into the Show 6 podcast, where we break down the Championship Series for Pokemon GO. It's hard to believe, but we are entering our third season of the show, and we have so much to talk about leading into the 2026 competitive season. We'll start off with talking about some of the new meta updates for Tales of Transformation, then the myriad of changes that have come to the Championship Series. That and much, much more. So if you're ready, lock in, good luck, and have fun. Welcome in everyone to a brand new episode and a brand new season of the Show 6 podcast. We're heading into a monumental year for the game, for the Championship Series and everything beyond. And honestly, the hype is palpable. I'm really excited for this season. ZZ, I couldn't do it without you, my friend. Welcome in. How are you feeling?
Welcome in everybody. Thanks for having me back again for yet another season. There was no changes behind the scenes, guys. It's still the same two dudes. And yeah, it's the season Tales of Transformation. I do feel like a new man, unwashed, ready to tackle the next season of Play Pokemon. And yeah, I'm certainly excited for the things to come and for the things that are already here.
Awesome. Well, as I alluded to in the intro, we're going to talk about the Tales of Transformation update first, because we do have a couple of tournaments happening this weekend, I believe. We've got Frankfurt and Monterrey. But as of right now, we're kind of working with a limited information, if you will. We've seen some practice tournaments. There was a Zygarden stream just this past weekend. Martine released the results of all his practice tournaments, which I saw you actually post about as well, ZZ. There's a lot to talk about there. But let's just go ahead and dive in and give our impressions of the meta. I've been playing all my Go Battle League battles. I've been maxing out all my games for the first time in quite a while, to be honest. But let's go ahead and start things off here. In terms of the updates, I got to ask you, knee-jerk reaction, is it good? Is it bad? Do you have any surprises or any disappointments?
So I will say that overall, I feel really good about this update. And I wasn't initially on board with that notion because I saw what was revealed at Worlds in Anaheim. Yeah. And I was comparing it to what we saw the season before in Honolulu. And the season before, we saw a complete reinvention of the meta with 14 nerfs back in the day, and most of them were really substantive, were really shaking up the meta as we knew it. I think the counter nerf was in there. There was like the entire gutting of Vigoroth and like a lot of stuff that really turned the meta upside down. We didn't quite have that, but we still had a huge update that it didn't really take many Pokemon out of the meta entirely. But instead, it just lifted up even more options, giving people so much versatility in team building. And you talked about me reposting one of Martine's tournament graphics. In the first week of practice, 38 different species won a practice tournament, and I think like 12 practice tournaments overall. So yeah, you can you can essentially extract from that where we are right now. It's kind of the Wild West, but it is the Wild West in a way that feels fun and non-toxic. Like creativity gets rewarded, and it's not as RPS as I originally thought it may be.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, again, we're kind of, and we'll talk about this in a moment, we're kind of moving in a direction where we're getting more and more buffs and more boosts to Pokemon, but not really that kind of like straight up assassination that we saw with Rock Slide getting nerfed, Body Slam getting nerfed, in the example of Vigoroth. So it kind of feels like there are certain Pokemon that have been sticking around that could force this meta into being RPS. One Pokemon in particular keeps jumping to front of mind for me. That's Dedenne. It feels like that Pokemon is a real kind of thorn in the side of the overall health of the meta. But I want to say, just in terms of general vibes, in terms of general updates, one of the biggest changes that really rocked my world was the changes to dragons. Seeing Dragon Breath and Dragon Tail both kind of be restructured. And in a funny way, they're actually identical, right? You're going to be getting 3 damage and 4 energy per turn, whether it's Dragon Breath or Dragon Tail, but it just changes the whole dynamic on how these Pokemon are played. Suddenly they're spammier, they're not dealing as much fast attack pressure. It's kind of like the change we saw with counter, where not everything was getting immediately countered down anymore. Once counter got nerfed, Metacham fell out of the meta. Now we're seeing dragons actually become charge attack oriented Pokemon in my mind, which is really wild.
Yeah, and you mentioned power creep, Speedy. I
Yeah.
think one way this expresses itself is through the change in pacing over the years. For the longest time, something like getting to a Hydro Cannon in 10 turns was considered like almost broken. And
Yes.
right now, I feel as if for a medium bulk Pokemon, reaching your first charged attack in more than 10 turns already makes it unviable. Like if you have the bulk to stick around, it's not as important. But for many Pokemon, that was just like disqualifying from the get go. And every
Mm-hmm.
single Dragon type fast attack user fell into that category because even a 35 energy move could not have been reached before 12 turns. So by shifting the Dragon Breath and Dragon Tail parameters to essentially the inverse of what they were,
Mm-hmm.
um, even like nerfing Dragon Tail slightly, but that's neither here nor there. I think that really is more valuable than the raw damage output. There was like a niche for Dragon Breath users. Like I was a big Shadow Dragonite enjoyer because that was just
Yes.
forcing swap and the 2 shields a lot. That playstyle is kind of outdated now, but
Mm-hmm.
instead dragons have become a lot more flexible, a lot faster, and I think they synergize with the 45-second switch timer pretty well now as well, because you want to spam those charge attacks to get your clock back up.
Yeah, exactly. I think I noticed this last season when it came to Golisopod with Fury Cutter and the Fury Cutter buff, because then you're getting to your Aerial Ace, your Aqua Jet, your X Scissor in 10 turns every single time. Now we look at a Pokemon like Dragonite getting to its Thunder Punch in 10 turns, its Superpower in 10 turns. The Dragon pacing has honestly been a big wake up call for me. For example, Dragonair, it used to be 12 turns to the Aqua Tail or to the Body Slam. Now it's only 9. It's literally faster than a Hydro Cannon for Alligator, than an Aqua Jet, Fury Cutter, Golisopod. It's so fast, and you have to be ready for it. And then there's other updates as well that I think are really important, like Ember. Ember on Charizard and Ninetales in particular seems to be a real game changer for those 2 fire type Pokemon. And this just goes to what you're alluding to about the 45-second switch timer. I adore it. I love it. I think we've finally found the sweet spot for Great League. Just all those matchups where I wish I could have swapped out just a few seconds earlier, those are happening now. Those are happening for me, and I feel so good. The battle mechanics feel so much more fluid. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I adore it.
I think that was the perfect change. And I remember that last season when we moved from the 60 seconds to the 50 seconds, a lot of competitors were like, okay, I like this. 50 seems odd to me because
Yeah.
a lot of people just classify like a minute in a bracket of 4 times 15 seconds, essentially.
Yep.
So yeah, I think now you are guaranteed to reach your switch timer again after 4 charge attacks have been fired, essentially. And
Hmm.
in many cases, if there's a couple of fast attacks in between, it may even come up after 3 charge attacks. So it makes the game even more dynamic, and it's not overtuned, which I think is also very healthy for the game because we did have like a weekend or so, couple years back, around April 1st, when weather ball spam was the meta, and we had a 30
Yes.
second switch timer. And that
Oof.
was just like, I guess like there was still skill expression, but it felt weird. It felt weird in a fun
Yeah.
way, but not in a way that you want your entire championship series to be. So I think yeah,
Exactly.
we arrived at the sweet spot, and I'm happy for it.
The 30-second switch timer, I believe that was like an April Fool's Day joke that was pulled by Niantic. That was the moment of Psycho Boost, Defense Form Deoxys, Superpower Melmetal, and anything with Wild Charge. And you just basically like spam off these moves, switch, spam off these moves and switch. And that was a little bit too fast. Honestly, it felt like we were going to start to run out of game clock before we actually had a decisive winner in some
Yeah.
situations. So I agree with you. I
Oh
think that
man.
the 45-second switch
I
timer
haven't
is
heard the
best.
name Defense Deoxys in a while. That used to be a Pokemon.
I know. I mean, you remember when Kimi Sui won a regional in North America? I
Yeah.
believe he took on Arrow in the grand finals, and that feels like ages ago. But
Yeah.
yeah,
This has me all nostalgic. But yeah, I guess like the future is now, and
yes.
even old men like us have to adapt.
One more change I wanted to talk about just briefly in terms of fast attacks is the change to confusion. Confusion now going to generate energy more quickly. That means that your Hypno and your Jirachi are going to get to their elemental punches and Doom Desires in kind in only 3 confusions, which is 12 turns, which is, again, much more on par than the 16 or 20 turns that it usually took a confusion user to get to their move. I have a really diabolical idea, ZZ. I'll drop this on you. If status effects ever come to Pokemon Go, one of the ideas that I had to buff confusion into relevancy was after every confusion, there was a percentage chance to confuse the opponent that is hit by it.
Oh
And
man.
what that correlates to is, let's say you have a Charizard with a Blast Burn and a Dragon Claw loaded, and your Pokemon's confused because it just got hit by a Hypno. It triggered the confusion status effect. No matter which charge tag button you press, there's a 50-50 chance that that charge tag will actually go off once you activate it. So that was my idea to buff confusion and to add some chaos into Pokemon Go, but we haven't seen that yet, and we're gonna have to deal
While
with
we're at
our
it, let's
energy
add
gain.
abilities as well so that
Yes.
Jirachi gets access to like Serene Grace, and every confusion just has a higher chance of confusing the opponent, and nobody will be able to play the game anymore. That would
Oh
be
my
the
gosh.
perfect way to make Jirachi meta.
How annoying would that be? I mean, it just reminds me of like Aaron Zhang and the Will-O-Wisp and just missing them over
Oh
and over
no.
again.
Oh
Could you
no.
imagine? Could you imagine
Yeah.
like a Charizard lined up against a Tinkaton and you press the Blast Burn and you Dragon Claw and you shield and then you press the Blast Burn again and you Dragon Claw a second time for whatever reason if you're confused a couple
I think it
times. But
was Jirachi that used to be like this flinch machine that where every VGC player was molding about it. But yeah, we don't
yeah,
have that in Go yet. I don't know whether they'll ever change it. But yeah,
yeah.
speaking of attacks that have a secondary effect,
Mhm.
Speedy, I'm just like moving through our notes, and there's a
Sure.
surprises section. Moves that surprise you, because at the end of the day, move updates are like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get until the switch is flipped and we actually find out um, what the moves are looking like in GBL.
Mhm.
And yeah, we had like 2 weeks to sit with the announced move changes without getting the energy values and
Yeah.
breaking swipe. Um, it's now a guaranteed attack debuff, whereas previously it was a 50% chance. But it
Mhm.
also is no longer a 35 energy move, but a 50 energy move. Um, that
Yeah.
was a thing that surprised me a lot, but it was a pleasant surprise because if we had a cheap guaranteed debuffing breaking swipe, I think Steelix may have gotten out of control. And Steelix is already viable even without breaking swipe. It just became a world champion without breaking swipe.
Yep.
So I don't really believe we need an even more powerful Steelix. So good on them to undertake drastic measures here and make breaking swipe less compelling.
Agreed. You can either have your cake or you can eat it, but you can't have both. And I feel like in this particular instance, I'm glad that Breaking Swipe was adjusted the way that it was. We adore and we admire PV Poke quite a bit for all the work that Kakuna does, but it was really kind of funny to me seeing the energy values that the community was guessing that PV Poke was inputting, and then what it actually turned out to be. People saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, it would be absurd if Ember was 9 energy," or "It would be crazy if Breaking Swipe was more than 40 or 45." But they did make those changes, and I do feel like there's a lot of balance there. It's almost like over the seasons, as Niantic has or Scopely has gotten more ambitious with the moveset updates, they've kind of learned on the go about what actually works and what could actually balance things. I do get that feeling that the updates are getting just better holistically in terms of what they're changing.
Yeah. There's definitely more deliberation, not just we slap boom burst on everything, but actually
Yeah.
having having an idea behind the changes. And yeah, another thing that I think nobody guessed before it was actually implemented is
Yeah.
Aura Sphere. And I think that makes so
Yes.
much sense because Aura Sphere was essentially introduced as a signature move of
Yes.
Lucario. Um, and like by extension through community days also to Togekiss, which now is
Mhm.
actually a viable option. And yeah, Orosphere I think used to be, was it like 50, 55? It was like it was like a nuke move, as we
Yeah,
like to call it. It was like
exactly.
high energy cost, big damage. Now they moved the damage down to 80, but they also changed the energy cost to 40. This is as good as Hydro Cannon, and
Yeah.
it makes it so that a lot of Pokemon are now able to pace to Aura Sphere with just 5 2-turn fast attacks. So that
Mhm.
is the exact 10-turn pacing that I talked about earlier, which is like the cutoff of viability. And a bunch of Pokemon, I think most prominently Togekiss, benefited from that adjustment. And I don't think it's broken. I think it's an ambitious change, but it served a purpose.
I think that the threshold for really, really good charge attacks, if you're over 2 DPE, you're in a really good place. Then you're talking about things like Ice Burn, Mega Horn, Dynamic Punch, Avalanche. Those are all 2. And then when you go above 2, you go into like the 2.2 range. You're hitting Blast Burn, Close Combat, Aura Wheel, all these really strong charge attacks that we
Yeah.
know. And I agree with you. I think that for being a signature move, it finally has like a signature vibe to it. It's got the damage, it's got the energy requirement. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm going to run Aurasphere on Lucario, but it's so bad that I can only do it for raids or something like that. I'm never
Yeah.
going to get there in a real battle. So I agree. One more thing I wanted to just gloss over really quickly. There was a big update to flying types that I think our lovely co-host might be very excited about. Peck got changed here. What the heck was that about?
I've been the biggest proponent of a pack buff for the longest time because I think flyers were like they weren't entirely missing from a competitive play, but I think flyers are so diverse in terms of their coverage, their secondary typings. Like it's just like a base type that allows
Mhm.
for a lot of different strategies. So after the wing attack nerf, we didn't really have a flying fast attack anymore that was able to get the most out of those flying types. And now with Peck
Agreed.
essentially even eclipsing what Wing Attack used to be and mimicking Shadow Claw with its 4 energy per turn and 3 damage per turn.
Mhm.
Um, this is a new fast attack, like one that hasn't seen competitive play before. It was in the game already. It was just overlooked because it was so bad.
Mhm.
But it is on a lot of Pokemon that um, now are actually viable, whereas previously there were jokes. Murkrow, for example, it won a practice
Yes.
tournament, and it is a real Pokemon now. It's a glass cannon. But yeah, it's your Moltres at home. If you don't have the big legendary bird, the Galarian Moltres, there's another Dark Flyer
Yeah.
out there, and we need more Dark Flyers because Manibus is no longer with us. I think the Aerial Ace nerf straight up took it out.
Yeah, I made a video about Murkrow the other day, and I called it the runt of the litter when it comes to the dark and flying types. You got the Mandibuzz, the Galarian Moltres, and Murkrow is somewhere down below. Some of the Pokemon that gained this really, really prominent fast attack, Togekiss, which I know we're going to talk about. That's definitely going to be a future topic of discussion. Malamar can still learn Peck, although I think Psywave is probably the way to go. Murkrow, as you mentioned, Dodrio, Altaria can learn Peck, although it does have Dragon Breath as well. Sea King with Peck might be a really interesting tech. I know that Tauntaun Batus is probably looking at that one. Firo, which I've tried, Dartrix, and this is just the sheer power of this update. I tried to make Toucannon work, ZZ. I tried before the Peck update when it had Bullet Seed. It was ranked like 460 on PvPoke. It jumped over 300 spots to 121 overall with Peck, Dropek, and Rock Blast. So that's the power of this Fast Attack update, and I'm here
Like
for it.
imagine if Flying Cup comes back and you have an actually viable two cannon with Rock Blast. I guess
Oh
like if
man,
people run Aerodactyl, it just vanishes within like 3 rock throws. But
yeah.
still, I think yeah, the Peck buff opened up a lot of avenues. I think the Peck Learn set also encompasses a decent amount of extra Pokemon in the main series games that haven't received the move
Mm.
just yet. I think like even like stranger stuff such as Escavalier could get it in the future. So yeah, I wonder where Peck takes us, but it certainly has taken us into a world of more interesting flying types again, and I'm definitely here for that.
Absolutely. I am as well. I'm trying all the peckers, and I'm doing my best to not have a tier list ranking the peckers because that just sounds so sus. But ZZ, let's go ahead and dive into some individual picks. We've got some categories here. Biggest overall surprises, 2025 Championship Series picks that are still in the top meta, new instant impact Championship Series Pokemon, good for PvP, but only in GBL. We also have appear to be good for play Pokemon, but are overhyped, which I'm excited for that segment there. Losers from the 2025 Championship Series meta, and then finally unchanged but better environmental buffs to 2026 Pokemon. So unless there's anything else you want to say about the overall meta, I would love to get into our individual picks.
Yeah, I think we can get into the individual picks. I'll just try and find my way through my notes document, but I'm pretty sure I have
Okay.
a lot of thoughts written down here.
All right, I'll start us off while you're sorting through your notes there. When we go to biggest overall surprises, I've got three at the top of my mind. That's going to be Ember Shadow Charizard as number one. That Pokemon might be back for real. Number two is Togekiss with Peck. This Pokemon with its legacy Aura Sphere, as well as Psyshock, Ancient Power, Dazzling Gleam, kind of dealer's choice of what you want to run as the second charge attack. But that Pokemon with Peck has been really impressive to me. And then finally, Altaria with Dragon Breath. I didn't know what it was going to take to bring this Pokemon back, but the Dragon Breath buff helped it quite a bit to become more relevant. And then Flamethrower can cook a Alolan Sandslash, which used to be its worst nemesis.
That is true. Like Altaria, I have feelings about Altaria, but we may be getting into that a little later
Okay,
because okay, I'll save it for later. But like Altaria is viable. I personally am a little bit of an Altaria doubter, but that may
fair.
just be me. I think its performance in practice tournaments was just fine. My biggest surprises were number one Togekiss.
Mm,
Again, like I think there are things that hold Togekiss back. I think sometimes you want some more anti-ghost utility from your flying type. But one thing that is so interesting about Togekiss is that with its Aura Sphere coverage, it is able to hit steel types that are notoriously difficult to overcome. Also, it hits Credilli for super effective, but like Togekiss and Empoleon, they can really go
yes.
toe to toe against each other, and especially if the Empoleon is not Shadow, Togekiss has ways of winning that in essentially every shielding scenario. Um, what needs to be kept in mind is that Togekiss and Empoleon, if you want your Togekiss to consistently beat the Empoleon, you may be interested in running it with a tiny amount of attack weight, just because both of those Pokemon come out within like zero point 0.1 attack of each other.
Yes,
So they're like
exactly.
almost identical in terms of stat distribution. So it's the charge attack priority is going to be determined by IVs. And yeah, you need to be conscious of that.
Write that down, write that
Um, One thing that
down!
will always win charge attack priority, we talked about it, it's Murkrow, it's another pack user. I have been impressed with how Murkrow has performed, but yeah, it's an incredibly glassy Pokemon, but
Yeah.
one that paces in a way that it is even able to overcome the Azumarill matchup despite being a Dark Fire, just because the Drill Peck spam is real, and in the two shields you will eventually outpace the Azu. Um, and yeah, my last positive surprise actually is a Pokemon that I didn't think, like, I didn't really trust it to rise again.
Mhm.
But it's Gastrodon. Gastrodon benefits from
Oh,
Water Pulse now being 50 energy rather than 55. So a lot of Gastrodon have opted to run Water Pulse over Earth Power. And what is nice about Gastrodon in this current meta is that with Empoleon around, the Shadow Kanto Marowak, which is otherwise the top dog of Mudslappers, runs the risk of losing either the zero or the one shield scenario to Empoleon, depending on whether it's a shadow or non-shadow. Whereas with Gastrodon, you tank a Hydro Cannon just fine. So I
mm,
think there's some decent utility for Gastrodon. And also, you don't have to fear the matchup against flying fire types as much anymore because
mhm.
um, the main damage source of Charizard is resisted fire type damage rather than unresisted flying type damage, like it was with Talonflame. And also, if you're up against the Talonflame still, you now have an actually super effective move to hit it with. So yeah, Gastrodon, I think, definitely a beneficiary of the update.
I noticed on Yankujin's moveset cards that Earth Power was 6-5 and the Water Pulse is 5-5 every single time. So, yeah, if you're playing against a Gastrodon and you have a Talonflame, or if you have, like you said, a Charizard, and you feel safe, you feel like it might only be the Body Slam, think twice because the
Yep.
slug is coming for you. I agree with you. I think that Mud Slap is something that was not touched in this update or the last, and it will continue to be very prominent. I've seen honestly, dude, I played I think it was 2 days ago, and the day before that, basically 2 straight days, 48 hours of GBL games, and I saw a Gastrodon, I swear, on every single team. And of course, I posted about this online, and Lou replied. Lou said, "I don't see any problem with Gastrodon being everywhere." And yeah,
Typical.
to be fair, it is a cute Pokemon, but yeah, seeing it all the time is so annoying. I feel like going weak to ground is a death sentence in this meta.
Yeah,
Absolute death
yeah, yeah.
sentence.
Especially in the Go Battle League, where I
Yes.
think the more fast move heavy strategies are a little bit more prominent than in Show 6. Yeah, you definitely don't want to, like, you need your Cantamara contest, you need your Gastrodon contest.
Exactly right. Let's go ahead and move on to the 2025 Championship Series picks that are still top meta. I think there are three big dogs that are not going anywhere. We see them all over the practice tournaments. We see them all over scrims and everything like that. It's going to be Cradilly, Shadow Kenta Marowak, and Galarian Corsola. I don't know if you have any arguments, but I feel like those are the big three.
Nope, that is the exact top three that I have also. And if we look at
Yeah.
the chemical practice tournaments, we see all of those three Pokemon above 50%. They're the only Pokemon that are on more than half of the teams. They just feel like like sometimes they feel unique. I think something like Credilly just it has such a unique coverage, essentially being one man grass soul with its rock and grass coverage. Can you replicate that? Um, and then Kanto Marowak, I think the ground type role, as we just went over, is incredibly important. Mudslap is just a neutrally a very oppressive fast attack. And
Mhm.
also, you do want to have those options that reign in Dedenne, which we identified as
Yes.
a Pokemon that may have very RPS relationships within the meta, and having Cradilly and Kento Marowak on your team just really helps protect you there and
Mhm.
makes it so that matchups may not come down to shenanigans as much, like very non-interactive gameplay if you just play alignment-based Pokemon such as Dedenne.
Mhm.
So yeah, those two discourage Dedenne usage. Whereas Galarian Corsola, this is interesting because um, it used to be Dusclops in that role. Remember
Yep.
NAIC? Everybody was on the Dusclops train.
Mhm.
Not anymore. I feel as if Galarian Corsola, even though it's less accessible, unfortunately so, only being available through 7 Kilometer X and really desiring to be traded away for an IV reroll. Um, it is just the most potent ghost type generalist. There's not a ton of Pokemon that really hard punish ghosts. I have seen some for it, I have seen some Galarian Moltres, but against 4 to 5 Pokemon on every team, Galarian Corsola just has great play. Yeah, therefore, it reigns supreme, currently the most used Pokemon in practice, and I don't really mind it beyond the accessibility because I think it makes for a lot of balance and neutral play overall. Like having
Mhm.
play into everything without really dominating too many things, I think that is what we want from a meta staple.
I agree with you. I think that what I personally have seen with the rise of, or the increasing rise of Galarian Corsola, is the lack of dark types in the meta. I'm looking here at the winning practice teams from the Cano Cult. It looks like, honestly, out of the 12 teams, 4 teams had at least one dark type. And then we see 3 ferrets as well. So 7 out of 12 had at least one direct answer to Galarian Corsola. But outside of that, it's really tough. I mean, there's not a whole lot here that just absolutely walls its energy and shuts it down. And I think that that's a big reason for it as well. It feels very comfortable to safe switch Corsola, to lead it, to put it in the back, wherever you want to put that Pokemon. It doesn't really feel threatened right now, and I do think that is a correction that we will see as the meta develops. Maybe some more answers to ghost types, whether it be dark or whether it be normal, something else. I think honestly, Furret Stonks are just going to continue to rise. That Pokemon I think is actually pretty solid in the current meta, especially if you can steer away from the steals. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. I feel like Shadow Canton Marowak, top dog with the Mud Slappers. Cradilly, the one man grass hole, which I have not heard, but is hilarious. I agree with you on that one as well. I think you really have your dealer's choice of Bullet Seed or Acid. If you want to do better against fairy types, you run Acid. If you want to do better against the Mud Slappers, you run Bullet Seed. So you have a lot of options there. New Instant Impact Championship Series Pokemon. These are Pokemon, at least in my list, that I picked that got new moveset updates that feel new or feel like they've got a new look to them. I'm going to go ahead and lead in with one that we've already touched on before. That's Togekiss. I feel like Togekiss is a instant impact Pokemon. I do think that, to your point, you want a little bit more ghost coverage in your flying types. I do agree with you on that. I have paired up against a couple of Galarian Corsola in GBL, and when my last Pokemon was Togekiss, it just felt so sad because I had no way to really fight back against it. But I will say that its ability to roll compress, to beat grass, to beat fighting, to throw the Side Shocks, to throw the Aura Sphere into steals is so good. And you're exactly right about the attack stat as well. ZZ wasn't kidding. It's literally zero point 0.1 attack difference between a rank 1 Empoleon and a rank 1 Togekiss. Empoleon at 123.8 and Togekiss at 123.9. So make sure to get a little bit of attack on your Togekiss. My second pick, something that you might actually like a lot, is going to be Shadow Gyarados. I feel like the buff
Oh.
to Aqua Tail and to Crunch via the increased pacing of Dragon Breath is going to help that Pokemon a lot. Right now, it doesn't look that great because there is still a lot of electric in the meta, whether it's Dedenne or the occasional Morpeko in Go Battle League. But I feel like as the season goes on, that Pokemon will become more and more prevalent. I think Gyarados will be better in Pittsburgh than it will be in Frankfurt, for example. And my third Pokemon, speaking of Pittsburgh, is actually going to be Air Cutter Corviknight. I think we finally have a Corviknight moveset that is fast enough, dynamic enough to actually see real competitive play on a consistent basis, more so than last season. But there's a catch. There's an asterisk here, ZZ, because everyone is
Catch.
playing
Yes.
Payback Corviknight. And I think that is going to fall off. I think we're going to see
Oh.
Ironhead Corviknight, Ironhead Air Cutter, because you want to boost up your attack. You want to hit him with a stab Ironhead. It feels so bad to lose to Pokemon like Cradilly, to the occasional fairy type without Ironhead. I think that is the shift we're going to see. I don't know if you agree or if you think I'm just out of my mind.
I think it's like a little bit of three moves, like two move slot syndrome, where you want to fit
Yeah.
three attacks in, but you cannot really do that. Yeah, I do have opinions on Corvi. They're not the strongest opinions,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's overall a very well balanced Pokemon. I don't believe it's going to be that meta sweeping staple. I think it's going to slot right in there with the Togekisses, with the Charizards, with the Galarian Moltres, in terms of the very diverse array of flyers that we now will have. It's not going to be like Corby is going to be legal in Frankfurt, but not with Aircutter just yet, so we'll probably not see it as much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I like about Payback is the play that you have into the top three, where you have a decent enough matchup into Marowak by virtue of resisting ground type damage, where you have Payback coverage for the Galarian Corsola, and where you still at least resist the fast attacks from the Cradilly, and you should be able to tank two Rock Tombs just barely. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I can see the argument for Payback, especially with like Pokemon such as Empoleon still in the meta, where you really want to hit it for something. Um, but yeah, it gets awkward in a matchup like the Togekiss matchup, where you throw two Air Cutters and you're surprised that those don't knock out.
Yeah.
So yeah, Corvi is going to be a little bit of a work in progress. People will find ways of making it work, for sure, but I don't think it's just going to dominate the meta the way its PvPoke ranking would suggest. Um,
Totally fair.
but yeah, what's my topics here. Let me check. Oh yeah. Well, while we were at it, I think in terms of instant impact, you can't be much more instantly impactful than Empoleon. Um, I think the addition of Metal Sound, it gave it that pacing. It gave it good play into Credilli. The energy is really nice into Marowak. It hangs with Togekiss. That's an interesting matchup. Um, it doesn't love the Corsola matchup, but it can do something there. And also with more meta trends like the return of Azumarill as an actual contender, just walling off that energy is really, really nice. And one thing that Shadow Empoleon can do, which regular cannot, is that if it leads into a Dedenne, despite having a negative type matchup there, with Electric being super effective, in the two shield scenario, you will actually be able to win that matchup because you win charge attack priority, and after doing enough Metal Sound chip damage, your Hydro Cannon will knock out the Dedenne. So this is with like the tiniest amount of deviation from rank 1 versus rank 1. So a little less bulk on Dedenne, a little attack on Empoleon, then that matchup is yours as the Penguin. So yeah, I think Empoleon, it's probably going to be among the top 6 most used Pokemon in Frankfurt.
I have very strong opinions on Empoleon. I won't get into it
Oh,
right now, but
okay.
yeah, I totally disagree.
I smell a fraud watch contender, but yeah, let's move to another consideration of mine, and I think this one is less controversial because we have just seen it take a big grassroots tournament in the
Yeah,
Zygarden Tales of Transformation event, where RGR, the I think Swedish person who made a pretty solid run at NAIC, if I'm not mistaken,
correct.
actually managed to take it all with a fairly unique team composition. We don't probably have it on the screen, right? That's what YouTube is for. If anybody's just listening to it, we have a YouTube video of this. It hopefully is up already, and we should
Mhm.
have the team just to show it to you. And yeah, I think Shadows are mostly with Ember. I was like curious about Dragon Breath, but I don't think there's that many pure dragons in the meta that would justify it. Um, and yeah, with Ember, you get to a Blast Burn in just 12 turns. And the Blast Burn is essentially a delete button for most Pokemon. So if
Yes.
your delete button is 12 turns away, and you have an option of baiting with an air cutter and potentially even boosting your attack, yeah, that just leaves you in a really good spot. So I think Shadow Zard is going to do bits. And yeah, another
Yeah.
Pokemon that I classified as buffed. It is technically buffed, even though not much has changed. It also featured on the tournament winning team that we're talking about, and that is Charger Bug to me. Because Charger Bug does a few things that are very Dedenne like, and that it has the core breaking potential that electric types possess. But it also has some counterplay against Credilli, taking the zero shield
Mhm.
scenario, and also it benefits from the buffed World Switch, which is just really good fast move pressure. And even if your opponent has shields to hide behind, you will be able to put in some work with Charger Bug.
Charger Bug almost made it onto my list. I really feel like it, and to your point, not only about the grass coverage, the electric coverage, but also the dark type coverage. If you're up against something like a Greninja, for example, that's really, really rough. Any dark flyer, right, doesn't want to see the Charger Bug either. I think Charger Bug, we did see it on two, I believe, of the 12 winning practice tournament teams. I think we're going to see it a lot more, especially in the immediate weeks after Corviknight becomes eligible with Air Cutter. I think we will see a lot more Charjabug. Um, yeah, so your picks are Empoleon, Shadow Ember Charizard, and Charjabug. I only strongly disagree with one of those, and I think we should just go ahead and slide over to another section called "Appear to be good for play Pokemon, but are wildly overhyped." I think this segues perfectly because my number one
Yes.
pick in this category is Empoleon. If you are weak to electric, if you're weak to ground, if you're weak to fighting, what are you doing in the current championship series meta? You're losing to Marowak, you're losing to Gastrodon, you're losing to Annihilate, you're probably losing to Primeape in most situations as well, and you're losing to electric types unless you're an even energy, even shields to something like Dedenne, right? That Pokemon looks solid. it looks fun. It's a very imposing Pokemon, great design. I really do like playing Empoleon. Way back in the day, I have fond memories of playing Empoleon, Double Dragon, and Ultra League, and hitting number 2 on the GBL leaderboards, highest ranking of all time.
Oh, really?
But I don't think that it has what it takes to succeed in this meta. There's just too many threats to it, and you can run the shadow for the additional potency, but I feel like you also get farmed down. Basically, a shadow annihilate shields one time, and it just eats your Empoleon. Marowak shields one time, and it mudslaps all the way through. It's really rough for Empoleon,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Right? I think it's the hot thing right now, but I think it's going to fall out of favor. The second
I will
Pokemon, I think.
say, like,
Go ahead.
to your point, and adding to what you just said about Empoleon, it did win 3 practice tournaments. All of those practice tournaments took place on September 3rd. We have had
Hmm.
8 practice tournaments since, and Empoleon didn't win anymore. So you may be onto something there, and I think it's really unfortunate that Empoleon is kind of caught in the crossfire of people running Mudslappers to prepare for the Dene. So yeah, I think there's good reason to believe that Empoleon may be a little bit overrated, but I still think it
Yeah.
can do well. I still think it can do
I think in the right hands it can do well, but you essentially put yourself in a position where if you want to play Empoleon, you have to pull out the Mudslapper. You have to pull out Annihilate. You have to avoid those matchups unless you're up massively in terms of energy. And Metal Sound is great for pacing. It's great for getting to the charge tags, but I don't feel like it's a farm down move that you're going to see very often. You're not
it.
farming
Yeah.
down a Lapras with Metal Sound. You're not farming down a Togekiss with Metal Sound unless you want to take an Aura Sphere on charge tech priority. There's just so many obstacles. I think if Metal Sound did a little more damage and was a farm down move, maybe. But to me, I'm not sold. I don't know if anyone wants to leave a comment on the YouTube version or drop a comment on the wherever we post this on socials. But I want to hear your opinion. My second fraud watch candidate is actually going to be Talonflame. I know a lot of people were talking about this
Oh.
Pokemon as being a fire and flying type that might be prominent, but I just feel like it gets outmaneuvered by Charizard. It's already difficult to run fire in this meta with as much rock and water as we have, and I just don't see it being a hard check to something like the Bug Steals, like it was at the end of last season. And the third pick that I have, I'm sorry, Martine, it's the Shadow Giratina altered form. And if he's listening to this, he's probably saying, "What the heck? I just beat you in the September joust with this Pokemon, and it was insane." And I agree. But as I was telling ZZ, my only fairy type was Dedenne. I committed to the mouse against my better judgment, and it did fail me. I should have gone with Ticketon for my team composition. But Shadow Giratina in the simulations, if you look at PvPoke, it beats up heavily on the off meta. Anything that's like a grass, a water, an electric type, it just beats it up, right? But against the top meta picks, the things that you see the most often, the fairies, the glaring Corsolas, the dark types, it gets folded up like a wet paper towel. It absolutely does not hang as well as you would like. So Empoleon, Talonflame, and Giratina are my 3 that I think look good on paper, but we won't be talking about them in 2 or 3 months.
I think I agree with most of them. Like Giratina is it's just a Martine thing, right? Like no sane person would ever consider this, but yeah, this man is built different. So yeah, I think like it just has to compete with Corsola for the ghost type role, and that's not the competition you want to be in.
Yeah.
Whereas Talonflame, I actually see a niche for Shadow Talonflame specifically, because that Pokemon is able to take the 2 shield scenario against Credilli. So
Mm,
if that's like their best answer to a Talonflame, maybe there's something there. And
okay.
also something that I just recently found out, if you have a certain IV spread, I cannot recite it off the top of my head, but it's essentially just tiny amount of attack, a lot of defense, respectable HP, but the defensive bulk point is the most important. You are
Mhm.
able to win the 2 shield scenario against an Azumarill straight fly with the Talonflame. So if you see a Fletchling in the wild, catch it, save it, check the IVs later. There's like very special Talonflames out there. I'm still on the hunt myself. But I don't really believe in it. I think Charizard is going to just take its spot essentially.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Fair
I guess
enough.
I have
Oh, go ahead.
I guess I have overhyped candidates, right? I haven't actually said them yet. I was like,
No.
they're not worth talking about. Like Everybody knows swords are bad, but yeah. I feel okay. I'll just get right into it.
Yeah.
This Pokemon Top Cut Worlds, I was a very big surprise. And if it top cuts again, it would still be a really great surprise, even though it got like multiple updates. And that is Turtonator. Turtonator, people were
Oh.
really excited about because essentially it was always a mon with an interesting moveset. Like it had Incinerate, but it didn't really have a cheap bait move. And now
Mhm.
they were giving it Dragon Claw and Brutal Swing. The
Yeah.
problem is, Brutal Swing is fairly inefficient, being 35 energy. Like, you get there, but the residual will only matter after you throw like 4 Brutal Swings. Um, so yeah, like it's just like a low impact move in terms of what it does for like its own sake. And Dragon Claw ended up being reworked to a 50 energy attack. I think if you had a 45 energy Dragon Claw, that would be so much more helpful for Turtonator to reach that attack, because then you would have a 35 energy Brutal Swing and 45 energy Dragon Claw combining to 80 energy, which would be exactly 4 Incinerates and therefore super efficient. You cannot do that. Dragon Claw is too expensive. So I think Turtonator is still too clunky, and it's also just like caught in the crossfire of people going anti Dedenne because it doesn't want to
Yes.
take rock tombs and it doesn't want to take mud steps. So
Agreed.
it is not even the third strongest turtle, I would say. I think Torkoal is minimally better, still bad. I think Torterra is somewhat better, still not great. And I think Blastoise is pretty decent. So
Mm.
yeah, we rank the turtles. There's no more
Turtle
turtles
tier
in
list.
my. That would be so fun, honestly. That's a content idea if I've ever seen one.
Heck
Um,
yeah.
we have what is essentially like a wannabe turtle because this Pokemon, ironically, featured on the same team as Turtonator in Worlds, um, and it shares a typing with another turtle in Torterra. But it's Toadscruel. It is a grass and ground type.
Mhm.
Toadscruel is essentially the Kanto Marowak if you aren't that into buffed rock slide and would rather completely demolish every other mud slapper out there. And yeah, Toadscruel benefits from Seed Bomb being reached in 4 mud slaps now, so it's a pacing buff, and it likes a pacing buff, but I just don't believe it's enough. And the reason why I don't believe it's enough is because flyers are more around now, and you want to have a way to get around those flyers, even as a
Yeah.
ground type. And there's a bunch of ground types who can do that, but Toadscruel is not one of them, and therefore I don't believe Toadscruel will be part of the meta. Um, and lastly, a Pokemon that I think will be part of the meta, but will not dominate the way people are projecting it to dominate, is Altaria. I think it is usable, but I think it's going to be a B tier Pokemon. There's nothing wrong with being a B tier Pokemon, and it may even win a championship, but I think 50 energy as its cheapest attack is still too slow and exploitable, especially because you're so defensively vulnerable still. There's rock tombs that are coming from Cradilly. There's rock slides that are coming from Kanto Marowak, and you want to be able to outspam those Pokemon to make up for that type disadvantage. Like,
Mhm.
obviously, you still have the better typing into KWAC, but you get two shot by a rock slide. That's not great. You get Power Gem by Galarian Corsola. Azu is on the rise again, and you lose the 0 to 2 shield scenario.
Yeah.
Like if the Azu has 0 and you have 2, it doesn't help you. Um, and therefore, I believe that even though Altaria is in a better spot, it's not going to be a staple pick. It's a Pokemon that people will also use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think you make a really valid point. As much as Altaria wants to succeed, the flamethrower is not going to help it against Azumarill, right? It's definitely very, very niche. Turtonator, I tried. I made a video on that with Corlash's team that he recommended, and I just feel like the brutal swing damage, the dragon claw damage, it's so underwhelming. I was thinking about teching my Turtonator to Flash Cannon and Dragon Claw because having that surprise
uh,
for the fairy types is super rewarding.
yeah, if they
Um,
counter swap the Carbink, they will not see it coming.
Exactly. And I did actually lead into a couple of carbinks, and I was thinking, man, if I had the flash cannon here, I would just shred this Pokemon. And to your point about Toad Scroll, I agree. It's really funny, kind of how how the net of Mudslappers has widened. You know, we've gotten the Shadow Torterra, we've gotten the Toad Scroll, but it does still feel like Kanto Marowak and Gastrodon are a cut above most of the other Mudslappers. So I don't know. I also feel like Grass and Ground is a piss poor defensive typing. It's so bad, and you're
That's true.
so weak to so many things. I played Turtonator in GBL this season, and almost getting one shot by a Shadow Swampert Hydro Cannon feels awful. I mean, that is rough when you're a grass type Pokemon, even though it's got one of the best designs, I think, in all of Pokemon. The World Turtle, as they say, is just such a sick design. But that being said, I agree with all your picks: Turtonator, Toadscroll, and Altaria. I agree with what you said there. Let's move on to losers from the 2025 Championship Series meta. Pokemon that used to be hot and now they are not. I hate to do it to him because it's my favorite Pokemon since I was a kid. I hate to do it, ZZ, but Blastoise. I don't know
Oh.
how prominent Blastoise is going to be. I just feel like its rollout pacing and damage output was awkward, but I just don't. But some players can make it work, whether it was Dialab or Axon were able to make it work. I just don't feel like I don't feel like this meta is as forgiving as the previous meta was. So maybe Blastoise with energy could do some things. As I look at these practice tournament teams, I do see a spot for it, but I just haven't seen it really show what it's capable of as of yet. The second Pokemon that I have as a big loser from 2025 is Shadow Drapion. Despite seeing it
Okay.
on, I believe, two or three of these winning practice teams out of 12, I just feel like the environment is not good for it right now. It might come back, it might resurge, but I just don't feel like Drapion's that hot. And the third Pokemon that I just mentioned earlier on, actually in passing, is going to be Tinkaton. And I think
Oh.
that Tinkaton also has just I don't see as many openings as it used to have, and I don't see as many hard targets either. So that might change. I don't know, but at the current first blush impressions for Frankfurt Monterrey, I think Blastoise, Shadow Drapion, and Ticketon are going to be pretty low on the usage charts.
I think Tink is actually a good shout because, like, I don't know why it trended upwards, but it just became a thing in the middle of the world's preparation cycle, essentially.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was before Menabus got taken out of the meta and Shadow Charizard was propelled into the meta. So I guess like the type of flyers that it can now swing for with its big hammer, not as they're not as forgiving to like its defensive capabilities. And also like this isn't super relevant for Frankfurt, but as soon as Corvi is back in the meta,
Yeah,
Tinkerton is probably not going to have a good time.
agreed.
To your other points, Drapion, I think the Rice and Azu may help it because those two just form such a good pairing. And it did win the Zygarden tournament, which was a pretty large, pretty competitive one. So I don't believe it's going to be as common, but it is a way of dealing with ghost types, and people
Mhm.
will be looking for those. And it can at least hit Kanto Marowak back for some Aqua Tails. So I think Drapion is mostly unchanged. And I actually did play Blastoise in a practice tournament earlier today, and I wasn't super impressed, but I also
Mhm.
wasn't let down by it. I feel like
Yeah,
Blastoise is also in a position where it's relatively unchanged, and if somebody like Accent picks it up again, I think it could still make a decent run and maybe take a medal or two. But yeah,
totally fair.
overall, I don't mind the Pokemon you selected either. My losers, I mentioned it a couple of times already. Manibus is just not a thing anymore. It really needed like, even though Aerial Ace wasn't a good move in the first place, now it's just the straight up abysmal move, and Manibus is not able to make up for it despite its great stat product. But having too bad fast attacks to choose from, and your coverage move becomes worse. Like it's like at some point you just have to
You have to
wait
give it up.
for yeah, you have to give it up. You have to wait for more love in future move updates. I know it learns one of those bone themed moves. Is it like bone meringue or something? It's not in Pokemon Go just yet, but I kind of like if they bring back Mandibus, they should try to give it like an expensive middle of the road ground type move so it becomes less RPS and maybe a little better into stuff like Tinkaton or other steel types that currently give it trouble. That would maybe be a way of making Mandibus a thing again. But
So
also, I
you're
don't need
actually
Mandibus to be a thing.
yeah, uh, yeah. I'm thinking back to a couple of grand finals you were in this past season, and yeah, I think Mandibuzz was an issue. Um, Bone Rush, you're close. Bone Rush is a ground
Oh,
type
yes,
move
yes, yes.
that it can learn. It learns it in Scarlet and Violet, and I do think that yeah, having ground type coverage on Mandibuzz could be a nice twist.
Yeah, if anybody's listening to us, I know they're so hesitant about adding new moves. I
Yeah.
guess there is Chilling Water Community Day for Flabebe coming up. That is a new move.
Mhm.
But yeah, just like Mandibus's obituary featuring potential ways of resurrection. But yeah, that's not for now. Another Pokemon, another bird that has gotten just outclassed, I would say. Talonflame. You went over it
Yeah.
already. Yeah, it's Shadow Charizard time, and that's fine. The last Pokemon that I think has really not much going for it right now. It's like kind of surprising, but I selected Golisopod. Golisopod, like
Oh,
you would think that with Kwak and Credilli being so prominent, Golisopod would do things, but I just haven't really seen it pop up in practice at all. It just hasn't
yeah.
really been doing anything, and I don't know whether people are afraid of getting walled by Empoleon or whether it's the increase in pack users, but yeah, maybe even Azu's comeback where all the energy is walled. Um, yeah, I feel as if the like mostly the flying types that have come in made it so that Golisopod's defensive vulnerability as a bug type has been exposed one too many times, and yeah, I don't think it's going to make a grand final anytime soon. I know it featured at Worlds, but yeah, it may not be the season for Golisopod.
Right now, the hot thing seems to be flying types. I do think the Peck buff was part of that, but I also think that Pokemon like Galarian Moltres have stuck around and are just not going anywhere anytime soon. So if you're a bug water, whether you're a Glycepod or a Araquanid, and you're entering into a rock heavy meta, a flying heavy meta, and an electric type meta, it's really not a good spot to be. And if you even again, if you look back at these practice tournament winning teams, I don't see that many targets for a Glycepod. I mean, the softest team might be that September 4th team where you've got a ground type Kanto Marowak, a fire type Charizard, a Cradilly, and then you have neutral matchups into Lapras and Dusclops. But that might be one of the softest teams to Glyspod that I even see on this graphic. Otherwise, it just looks very inhospitable for the bug water, very turbulent waters for those types. But yeah, I think all your picks are good. Mandibuzz, got to give up the ghost sometime. Talonflame and Glycopod, I agree. Let's hop over to good for PvP, but only in the Go Battle League. And we only have two more sections left, this being one of them. And then we're going to jump into our Play Pokemon Championship Series updates, which I think are all really exciting too. So I can't wait to get into
Yes.
that. Good for PvP, but only in Go Battle League. I'll rattle them off real quick. Morpeko, Bastiodon, Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Those Pokemon are good in blind threes, but I do not think we're going to see them winning a tournament or even top fouring anytime soon.
Oh man, I'm agreeing more than I thought I would. I didn't even think of those Pokemon, like especially Morpeko and Kanto Ninetales. But yeah, those Pokemon are great in GBL and not essentially non-existent outside of it. Um, I also put like Bastiodon and Carbink, who are like
Yeah,
the poster childs of GBL strats, right? Like, and they did get
yeah,
buffed with Rockslide being more damaging and SmackDown also getting a damage increase. So yeah, you have the you have the potential to do that some more. One Pokemon that I wrote down, then used it, and now want to take off that list is Wigglytuff. I originally
Oh,
thought that Wigglytuff would just be like essentially a partner to Basti, but I see the utility.
Me too.
Because we were talking about, oh, we need ghost answers. We don't have ghost answers just yet. Um, and some of those may be Furret, which is a Sucker Punch user. Others may just be dedicated Dark types. And what beats ghosts and those common answers? It's Wiggly. And I did use it in the same practice tournament I used Blastoise in, and I was impressed by it because
Yep.
Charm got this rework where everybody was like a little nervous, like how good is this going to be? Is it going to be 9 energy charm? No, it's going to be 8 energy charm. It's doing a little less damage, it's generating energy faster, and now your pacing to the Swifts and Icy Winds is actually kind of nice. It feels like a Pokemon that plays into the opponent rather than a Pokemon that is reliant on alignment. Um, and yeah, actually being able to utilize Wigglytuff as a Pokemon that regularly gets to like 3 charge attacks in a game has been really refreshing. And I think its
Yep.
unique type combination of Fairy and Normal, it's still delicate, but I think it has some play. And if I look at some of the teams, like there's a September 6 teams, now there's
Mhm.
obviously a Clodsire that one has to be afraid of, but there's also a Primate, a Furret, and an Altaria. That's like
Yes.
3 great matchups for Wigglytuff, and then 2 neutral matchups in Dedenne and Quagsire. So yeah, I think that Pokemon. I wanted to say it's only good in GBL. I want to say it's good in GBL and interesting in Show 6.
Fair.
And
Fair.
lastly, I had Corviknight as a Pokemon that will be really good in GBL, maybe less so in Show 6, just because in Show 6, essentially everybody will have filled their position of flying type, and it's just the flyer that loses to flyers, which may lead to people opting for different options. Um, I still think Corby will be around, but I think it will be a lot better in GBL because GBL is where the Bastiodons, the Wigglytuffs are more at home. And there, I think the combination of being a sand attack user that resists charm and also has pretty unique coverage, I think that's going to go really far. So I think Corby is going to be a great GBL option, very flexible Pokemon, and slightly decreased in power level for play Pokemon, even though it's still viable.
Team building around Corviknight is really tough, especially in a Dedenne heavy environment, because you want to be able to beat electric types, you want to be able to beat rock types. And whereas if you try to lean towards a more neutral option, like a dragon, for example, then you're double weak to Dedenne and you absolutely get walled off with all your energy. So it kind of forces a lot of team builders to go with a Steel Flyer and a Mudboy, which is something we've seen ever since the predictable Go Battle League days of Skarmory Whiscash way back when. And I feel like once you lock in Corviknight on your team, due to the other factors in the meta, it kind of forces you to play a ground type on your team, whether it's a Quagsire or whether it's a Kanto Marowak. And then it becomes pretty predictable what your trio is going to be once you DC the Corviknight. So I think that kind of gives away what trainers are trying to do. And to your point, I think that does make it more difficult to run in Show 6. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in Pittsburgh once Air Cutter is legal and maybe people are teching to Ironhead. I will say, if you look at the flat PV Poke Sims and you just compare Payback Corviknight to Ironhead Corviknight, the Ironhead does significantly worse in the even shields in the in the one shield matchup, even shields, even energy. But once you give them both 10 energy, which is a switch in, a few sand attacks, they actually have an identical win loss record. So maybe switch in Corviknight with Ironhead might be the way. We'll see. Last category before we go into Championship Series stuff. Let's talk about unchanged but better Pokemon that benefited from environmental buffs and we think will be significant in the 2026 season. I've got two strong picks, ZZ, and then I've got one cope. And I wanted to
Okay,
end it
okay.
on this one because I knew it'd be controversial. All right. My strong picks. First off, Trevenant. I think if you're a grass type
Oh.
with Ghost and you're able to Shadow Ball Corsolas, you're able to Seed Bomb through the Mud Slappers, and you have neutral play against a lot of other picks in the meta, I think Trevenant. I don't know. It might be there might be something there. I think depending on how the rest of the things shake up, I think it's got
I'm very
potential.
curious about your other picks, given that that was one of the 2 real ones. But
Yeah, it's not Cope, not yet. My second pick, which I think you are going to agree with this one heavily. I saw this constantly in my battles yesterday. I think we're going to see it in the Championship Series. I believe Dialab was playing it in the Zygarden tournament. Unova Stunfisk. We had so many buffs
Oh,
to flying types, and then there's so many other targets for it. An occasional poison here or there, but I do think there are some targets for ground type damage. I think the pancake is going to be prominent. We are going to see it in Frankfurt and Monterrey, and we're going to see it probably even more in Pittsburgh once Corviknight is entered into the meta. My final Pokemon that is might be extreme cope is Lantern. I think Lantern has a tough time against Mudslappers, but it's water subtyping, it's water gun pressure, and it's electric typing with Thunderbolt. I think can really close out matchups if it has a shield or energy advantage.
I think Lantern is the least cope of your three picks.
I just inverted the list on accident.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
yeah.
sad.
I think like you became less and less cope the more you progress to your list. Yeah, I think like I have some teammates that have been experimenting with Lantern, and they like it a lot. It's just like
Mm,
so bulky. It even has play into supposedly negative matchups. It resists Peck. It can fight back against just about everything.
yep,
It's a great answer to Azumarill. It's essentially the hardest wall we have to Shadow Charizard.
yep,
It really scares away those Empoleon. Like those will disappear quickly if there's a Lantern on the team.
yep.
So yeah, like Lantern the Fish, I could see that. I think Trevenant needed a Seed Bomb to go to 35 energy rather than 40.
Mm,
That would have given it a 5-4 pacing, I think. Um, Whereas right now, like it paces fine, but it would have. It's not enough to make up for its lack of bulk. And
mm,
Ufisk, I can see, but I will say that it struggles a little bit into the top picks currently, with Cradilly and Marowak being there to scare away
fair.
Dedenne. And even though, when Stunfisk has some wins that are very unique to it and has some utility that Dedenne doesn't have, it still has to kind of survive in that same environment. And I don't know whether like it's going to be around. I don't think it will ever break into top 12 usage this season.
Wow, no top
It's
12. Hold on, let me make this
no top
note.
12.
Mm,
But
we'll
like, I
see.
don't know whether we ever had a Unova Stunfisk in top 12, so it's not really like. I think the the more out there prediction would be that it now breaks into top 12. Especially because if we look at the successful teams from practice so far, I don't believe we see Unova Stunfisk on there just yet. So it remains to be seen. I'm not technically against Unova Stunfisk. And I think it can even beat Acid Cradilly in some shielding scenarios, but
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't feature in my list of environmental buffs. Um, the very first of these Pokemon that I have, I think it's a little bit of a too obvious one. It's just Azu. Dragon Breath is a thing again. If you want
Yeah.
a check to Kento Marowak, your Ice Beam at least has some counterplay against Cradilly. You're bulky enough to sponge some energy if a Pokemon gets a farm down like Galarian Corsola. You just shrug off those Nightshades. Um, Again, like very helpful in dealing with Shadow Charizard. You do want to have one Pokemon that doesn't mind eating a Blast Burn from Shadow Charizard, which
Mm,
is essentially just meaning you want one bulky water type. And probably not Lapras because that's not really a water type in this context, thanks to the secondary typing of Ice. But yeah, Azu going to be a thing. It's not going to be the. It may even become the top usage Pokemon. I wouldn't even rule out that we will have like a regional where Azu is top one or top two or
yeah,
three.
I agree.
Um, it's just it's the poster child of Pokemon Go PvP. What can I say? Um, Similar yet still very different. Another water type that I think is going to excel in the right hands. An old favorite of mine, Greninja,
Mm,
because Greninja is an anti-ghost Pokemon, which again we talked about needing some of those. Um, it's also good against other dark types that may come into the meta as a response to Galarian Corsola. It struggles a little bit more than it should with Kanto Marowak, But as long
Hmm.
as you get like one shield down, you are fine in that matchup. Against Acid Critily, you can take the two shield matchup. Um, and even against Togekiss, which is like one of the more prominent fairy types right now, you just straight up win the two shield because you
Wow.
outpace, and eventually the Water Shurikens plus the Hydro Cannon is going to be enough to take that out. I did try it in practice alongside its trusty companion Shadow Scizor, which I also believe is still a very strong Pokemon.
Hmm.
And yeah, they did well. The good old NAIC duo, I think it's still very viable. Because at the end of the day, this meta just builds on the meta we already saw. In interesting new ways, but yeah, old strategies may still be plenty viable. And the last Pokemon, it did win a practice tournament as well. I think Dugong is going to be a little better than it used to be. Because Lapras is not really as around anymore.
Hmm.
And Dugong just has this way of dealing immediate ice type damage
Yeah.
to a lot of things like the new flying types, the Cradily, the Cantomarowak. Obviously, they hit it back, but Dugong is tanky enough to hold on, and it can. I think it's a Pokemon that is going to be very good at desyncing switch clocks, just because um, it makes it so the matchups are a little more drawn out. It slows the play down with Icy Winds, and yeah, if you maneuver a Dugong well, I think that can be a real competitive advantage in this upcoming season.
Yeah, and also, I don't believe you mentioned this explicitly. Forgive me if you didn't, but Dugong being able to shut down dragons is going to be a really, really big deal. Altaria, of course, does not want to see it at all. Gudra doesn't want to see it. Guzzlord doesn't want to see it. No matter what moveset you're running, it's going to be tough for that Pokemon to
Exactly.
overcome something like a Dugong. So
And also, we did see in the World's Grand Finals how difficult it is to take out a Galarian Moltres if your Ice type is a Lapras that does Psywave damage. It's going to be a little easier if you do Ice Shards, like with the Dugong. So, yeah, that's another reason to maybe opt for the more classic of, like, I don't know, like both are Gen 1.
mhm.
But yeah, like Dugong used to be good even when Lapras was far from what it is today. And I think it
Mhm.
may still be decent enough.
Yeah, very fair. I think all three of those are really good shout outs. Azumarill, yeah, as much as we wish for it to go away, the only way that we've been able to vanquish Azumarill in the past was through a bubble nerf. And until we get that again, it's just
Yeah.
going to stick around no matter what.
I
Greninja is
also don't have
interesting.
any hard feelings against Azumarill. I know it's like
Yeah,
we know its face, we've seen it a lot of times, but I also don't think it's evil. It's just
yeah,
like a neutralizing force, and I think it is a Pokemon that is needed in the meta just to balance things out. I'm kind of glad we have it still.
agreed, agreed. I remember in my sets, I think 2 days ago, I had a Shadow Annihilate, and I was able to beat Azumarill in the ones because I had a bit of an energy lead. And I was like, you know what? Even though this is a really tough Pokemon, you really would hate to see a Fairy type coming into your fighter. At least it's not freaking Dedenne, right? At least I can do something in this matchup, and it just doesn't feel super hopeless. So I agree with you. I think Azumarill's fine. It can stick around. I was calling for a nerf for it last season, but I have since changed my mind. I think it's fine where it is. I'm not sure if you have any other thoughts about the meta. I think we dived into a lot of individual picks that I think will be really strong. We'll learn a lot more about the Show 6 team building after
Yes.
this weekend, which I would love to dive more into that as we move into our third seasons of the show. That is some of the feedback that I have been hearing is that viewers and listeners want more breakdowns of teams, and they would love to see even PV poke simulations or even like structures of teams and how things work, because I do think there's a lot of mistake around how these teams actually come together. And we could talk about individual picks all day in isolation, that's easy, but I feel like talking about how teams actually
Yes.
function and work is
How do
is really
cores
critical.
emerge? What makes a team balanced? And just like diving into the ingenuity of our competitors. Yeah, I think that will I love that we got that feedback because it's very actionable, and also think
Mhm.
that I am always very interested in. So yeah, we can definitely look forward to some of that in our Frankfurt and Monterrey episode.
Stay tuned, everybody. Leave a review on the show if you haven't already. We announced it on social, so we're doing a Grim Snarl giveaway. ZZ and I are each gifting a ticket to the Wild Area Global event coming up in November. All you have to do to enter is leave a review for the show. It can be an honest review. It doesn't have to be a glossy 5-star review. Just leave an honest review and then reply to our post so that we know that you wrote it and you're entered for the contest. I think we only have 2 entries so far, so we basically have 2 winners. The field is
Yeah,
not very big.
yeah, yeah. Be quick, guys. There's no extra requirements. Anybody can take part. You don't need to be legend to enter. It's fine.
Exactly, exactly. There's room for everyone. So make sure to get those reviews in. We'd really like to get those reviews because it boosts the show and it probably will recommend it to more people who we think will also enjoy the show. So thank you for listening and get involved, get into the contest. ZZ, unless you have any other thoughts, I think we can dive into the changes coming to the championship series. There's, I believe, 6 different ones that I wanted to talk about. And
Yeah, there's a lot coming
yeah,
our way. I'm
there's a
here for
lot.
it.
So yeah, if you're ready, we can go ahead and knock that out.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'm just going down the list here. If you want to read about these changes, if you type in the keywords championships, Pokemon 2026 season changes, that will surely bring up the webpage where you can read through all of them. But we will have the visual component on the YouTube version as well in case you want to follow along. The first one is related to travel awards. So the travel awards for ICs has been increased from the top 4 on the leaderboards to the top 8. So the top 8 trainers at the time of pulling the numbers, right, will be able to receive that award, $1,000 to help them travel to the upcoming international championship, whether it be LAIC, NAIC, or EUIC. I think this is a big change for top players. And whereas most general PvPers who are just trying to qualify for Worlds probably wouldn't care as much, this is going to add a lot of these big regional names to these other ICs. You're not just going to see, Dunebug, Rise, and maybe Axon going to EUIC. You're going to see maybe Elam is going, maybe Pocket's going as well. Maybe you're going to see Subtile Ice or some other trainers from NA going. And the same rule applies to LATAM. You'll see more trainers from LATAM going to these ICs. So I don't know what your thoughts on this. This is probably much more prevalent to you being a high CP achiever. What do you think, ZZ?
So this has already impacted me because I was 8th place on the European leaderboard for the LAIC Travel Award. Um,
What?
so that essentially gave me a free $1,000 to travel to Sao Paulo in November. So I'm
Wow.
obviously a big fan of this change, but in general, I think this is really nice. Especially also for just like turnout for tournaments because I think it's a lot more attainable for many competitors that are like somewhat frequently top cutting. Like if you need a top 8 to get there, it feels more doable than if it's just a top 4. And I can only speak for myself, but I really wanted to go to a LATAM event at one point. Like it hasn't manifested yet, but it will very soon. So
Nice.
yeah, this really helped me to get there, and I love that this change will do the same for a lot more people now. And like at the end of the day, it's always just like a big net positive if we get a little bit of a bigger slice of the cake. There's a lot of Pokemon cake to
Mm.
go around, and Pokemon Go participating a little more now. It's just straight up great.
Yeah, I think it's great that the championship series and Play Pokemon are investing all this money as well. I mean, this is an extra $4,000 per region, 3 times a year, right? So this is a lot of
Yeah.
money that they're throwing at these competitors to try to get them to travel. And I think that this sense of like a regional invasion is just going to increase in intensity, right? When you've got 8 North Americans showing up to LATAM, or you've got 8 Europeans coming to NAIC, all on travel awards, I think it's going to be really, really hyped. So, late in the season for NAIC, this is probably going to be reserved again to our top performing players that have just grinded the whole season. But early on, if you finish the previous season strong, maybe you do qualify for the LAIC award. EUIC is going to be very interesting. That's like a mid-season checkpoint. I think we will see a lot of really good players traveling to this event, which I'm really excited for. So I'm happy to hear you're going to LATAM, ZZ, for this LAIC in Sao Paulo. Once you experience the crowd in Sao Paulo, it's no crowd will feel the same. I'm just telling you that. And we need to bring more of that energy to Europe and to North America because we
I
need
need
that.
them to adopt me because I know like some people have gotten their little LNDS shirts and
Yeah.
just that support that those groups of trainers provide to their friends. That's always so heartwarming to see. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, definitely, really bringing my adoption papers. They just need to sign, and I'll be LNDS Zzweilous going forward.
Hey, clip it, clip it. I know the Brazilians would love to add you to the roster. They already have such an incredibly stacked roster as it is, but they're always open to new talent. I've heard. So I hope you do get the jerseys, Easy. You deserve it, man. Let's go ahead and jump into probably the most controversial change coming to the championship series. That is championship points awarded from Go Battle League leaderboard placement.
The
This is hot.
Chake rule.
The Chake rule is coming to a Go Battle League leaderboard near you. Um, Two questions: how many points do you think it will be, and is this the right time for this?
So, given the comparison between the different games, I feel as if that may not be super substantial. I think it will probably be more than a cup win, but less than a top cut at a big event.
Fair.
I would, my guess would be like 75 points, but maybe mistaken. I also don't know whether it's just going to be the number one top person or whether it's like, oh, the first place gets 75, the second place gets 50, and then we get like 32 or 28. Is it
Mm-hmm.
like that, or we don't have that many details about this change just yet. I don't believe we even know whether it will apply from the start of this season onwards, or whether it's reserved for a later time when they'll be able to sort out potential infringement of terms of service, or however certain people manage to climb the leaderboards and put like a 400 point gap between themselves and the next person. Um, it doesn't feel terribly legitimate, but I just have to hope that they'll figure it out. I've always been on the team of, yeah, please incentivize GBL a little more, not only for like regular players but also for top players. Even though I think that beginners should be more of a focus, but that's for
Mm-hmm.
Niantic slash Scopely to assess, and not for Play Pokemon obviously caring about the very best. And I think that's overall a good change. I think it's overall a good change. And we just need the implementation to stick the landing. If that can be achieved, I think this is just definitely the first step into the right direction. I feel like more steps may be needed with the overall GBL incentive structure, but that may be a long term project. Yeah, that's my initial thoughts. But again, a lot of it is still up in the air, and things may change.
Well, as you know, I keep my ear to the ground on a lot of things that happen within the community. And I did see Chake and a few others online complaining about being banned at the conclusion of the past season. And I did see Home Slice Henry post a GIF of Stephen A. Smith smoking a cigar and laughing maniacally into the
I
camera.
did see
So,
that. I did see that.
so this might
Yeah.
be yeah, this might be an
The
example of a situation where Play Pokemon's involvement in something actually pushes the lever in the right direction, if I may say so.
the question that I have is whether we stopped the bleeding or not. Like, did we solve the
Mm,
problem that enabled them to do whatever they did? Or did we
mhm.
just ban the account for the next account to pop up in a week or so? So that
Fair.
is a question that I cannot answer. But yeah, I'm glad that steps have been undertaken. Yeah,
Yeah.
competitive integrity is difficult to enforce in a remote environment, but I'm glad that they're doing the best they can.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the other games. Look at games like Pokemon Unite. They have a history of dealing with issues with people multi-accounting, with people smurfing, whatever it might be. Uh, any remote environment, it's tough. But I still stand by my mantra that I've said over the years. Let them cheat and let them show up to an actual tournament and get their butts kicked on stage for everyone to see. Because honestly, they're going to get what they deserve when they go up against some of the best, right?
Yep.
I do want to add a caveat here. as Easy alluded to, we don't have the total information. We don't know how many points. We don't know if it's page one of leaderboards, if it's top 8 from the leaderboards. We don't know that yet. There's one quote I wanted to read off verbatim. Quote, may be eligible to earn championship points from their final leaderboard placement at the end of some Pokemon Go seasons. So may, some, and there's a lot of words here. If you speak legalese, you can see what they're trying to do here. There's a lot of I guess like caveats built into this, but it sounds like at the conclusion of Sun Go Battle League seasons, there's going to be a lot of people pushing for that leaderboard placement to get those points. And with our BFLs being 4 cups and 4 challenges each, it does feel like getting that one extra cup worth of points can make a big difference. So a lot of trainers will be grinding the leaderboards, and I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see Go Battle League and the Championship Series becoming more and more aligned. I think that's really super
Yes.
important to increase the overlap of the Venn diagram that we have here.
Yeah. Just integration of the one thing that we are so excited about and the thing that every Pokemon Go player gets exposed to, so that it's about the funnel, right? Like we want more
Yes.
people to be interested in going to those in-person events a little more. And yeah, I think like even though this is just impacting the top players, it just is a step into the right direction and more may follow.
Next up is the Pokemon Go age of eligibility change. This is not a major one for us because we are old heads, but I do think this is a bit interesting. Pokemon Go does not use age divisions for its official competitions, but traditionally, competitors must still meet age requirements to compete in the Go Championship Series. Competitors who don't currently satisfy the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, age of digital consent in their home country may participate in Pokemon Go Championship Series events so long as they utilize a Niantic Kids account. So this is going to be good for younger trainers who are just getting into it, maybe parents or guardians who want to bring their young one to a tournament, and maybe they want to compete in the trading card game or VG or even Go, whatever it might be, and their younger one wants to compete in Pokemon Go. So there is a way to do that. I don't know if this is like inappropriate or if I should say it. I think enough time has passed. I have in my notes here, I wrote the Cook Shack rule ? Because I know Cook Shack was young when he won his event, and then there was like this whole fallout about not being old enough to actually get the world's qualification, to get the prize money or whatever it might have been. So yeah, positive
I
change, I
hope
guess.
this, yeah. Like this will definitely make it so that issues are less plentiful. But yeah, I think it was like mostly like it didn't affect that many players, but I'm glad that it will affect fewer younger players up in the
Yeah,
upcoming season.
me as well. Again, not as important for ZZ and I, but if you are listening to the show and you do have a young one that wants to participate, it's good news that you're able to bring them along with you, and they can actually get some tournament experience as well.
It's true.
Let's jump to probably the second hottest topic of debate here, next to the Go Battle League leaderboard rule. We're going to talk about limited metas coming to tournament play. Some people are rubbing their hands together like mosquitoes, so excited for this. And other people are furious. They're like, no, this is bad. This is stupid. I hate it. I feel like there's two sides of the spectrum here, and we have people on both ends.
Yeah, and I understand them both. So what does it mean, limited metas coming to tournament play? What I personally believe it means, and I am inferring this from the GBL blog post that we saw, is that my theory is that the LAIC may be played in a meta that is focused around like Ice, Psychic, Dragon, just like a couple types, like any regular themed meta, with targeted bans. Because if we look at the Go Battle League update, there is a Championship Series Cup that is happening during the week of the International Championship. And after that, we got the announcement limited metas may be coming to tournament play. So this, like connecting the dots, I just suspect that we get to have this themed meta for a big event. And the big event that aligns would be LAIC. How do I feel about this? I love it. I love crazy metas. I love non-conventional Pokemon. And I love the challenge of figuring out the puzzle before everybody else. But I can also see how somebody, maybe it's just honing their skills in Open Great League, preferring some more conventional strategies maybe doesn't even have all the Pokemon that may be necessary for that meta, because Pokemon Go is just like a walking, talking accessibility problem with all the spawns being seasonal, with like raid rotations, rocket rotations. I guess rocket rotations don't actually matter because in that theme cup, shadows are not eligible, so that helps.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like there were talks about just like, oh, I want my Open Great League. Oh, I may not have the Pokemon, and I think that's valid, especially if it's like a big international event that you do travel for. You want to travel to a tournament that happens in a competition where you feel comfortable in. And maybe if you earned your travel award, you did earn it in Open Great League, so it makes sense that you may be interested to keep that meta. My counter argument would be that as long as they announce it in time, this is not that different from any regular meta update that happens every 3 months. What if they nerfed
Oh,
everything into the ground, with the exception of Pokemon of the eligible types? Like, that would essentially result in the same. Like, the challenge is similar too, because new things are viable. You have to prepare for a new course, and you do have the time. I really hope that they do an official announcement as to when and how those themed metas will be implemented, so people actually get to be really certain and start their prep early on. But as long as that happens, I think it's not that big of a change. And I think it will not result in completely different names reaching the top ranks, because the fundamentals of the game stay the same. And this may just be a way of giving the spotlight to Pokemon that are unusual, but maybe fun to see broadcast in such a way.
that I don't know. That's a very interesting perspective there, ZZ. That it's basically like if they just turned the whole meta on its head and essentially just nerfed everything into the ground and then gave us a
Yeah.
brand new meta. I don't know if I completely agree with that. I think that's a little bit to one side of things. But I have been thinking while you're giving your spiel, I think that giving your insights, I should say. I do think that this is a very interesting development into how they're constructing the meta. Open Great League has been the norm since 2022, right? That's all we've ever played, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with Open Great League, but I do feel like it can constrain some people. It can make it feel like, oh, if I don't want to play in the Clodsire for Alligator meta, then I just am not going to play. Or if I don't want to play Nidoqueen, Trevenant, Walrein, that I'm just not going to play. Or the worst example, if I don't want to play Lantern, Trevenant, Noctowl, then I'm just
Oh
not going to have a
Lord.
fun time. So I do think the changeup is interesting. I wanted to dive in just a little bit closer on the specifications that are listed in the blog post, because I actually saw something just now that I didn't realize. So this limited time meta is going to be running in Go Battle League, and it overlaps with LAIC, as you mentioned, which is very interesting. Might be more than a coincidence. Only ice, flying, psychic, ghost, and dragons are eligible. Legendaries, mythicals, shadows, and ultra beasts are all banned. And then there is a select list of banned Pokemon, 12 in total. Lowland Sandshrew, Lowland Sandslash, Lowland Ninetales, Lapras, Galarian Corsola, Kingdra, Jellicent, Honedge, Duoblade, Aegislash, and Corviknight. And when you look at this meta, I was just running some sims in the background to see what PvPoke could come up with. It looks like Pokemon like Shadow Gyarados, Shadow Celio, Raikou, Aurorus, Abomasnow, Dusclops, Charizard, all those Pokemon could be top meta in this limited meta. So I don't know. This looks like a really exciting twist on the championship series, and I can't wait to team build and watch you team build if that turns
Yeah.
out to be the case for this upcoming tournament. That's going to
um,
be crazy.
Yeah, some of my teammates have been like talking about how would you construct a meta in which Smoochum is viable? Because one of my teammates has a Shundo, and I think it even has like a bow in its hair or something. It's like a very exciting Smoochum, and then everybody started to like theory craft a meta in which Smoochum is actually good. Very difficult. Smoochum, not a good Pokemon. And now this meta comes along, and it looks almost identical to the meta we concocted, where Smoochum is all of a sudden like at least the top 30 thread, which is like the best you can do with Smoochum. But yeah, I wonder, like, I cannot guarantee it. I do have 100 Smoochum. I could build it. Um, will it come to LAIC with me? We'll have to wait and see for the meta announcement.
We'll see.
um,
It's not even listed in
but
PV
yeah,
Poke when I search the
yeah,
rankings.
rightfully so.
But I will say at number 7 overall, and I'll post this graphic up in our YouTube version so you can actually see it. At number 7 overall on this mock rankings, without any weighting so far, number 7 overall is actually Zzweilous with Dragon Breath, Body Slam, and Dark Pulse.
It's a very good Pokemon. But
Wow, interesting, interesting.
maybe it's time for another IC Grand Finals. Let's wait and see.
We'll see. We'll see if again we're working off a hunch here, just looking at the tea leaves, so to speak, and trying to see how things line up. We see a specific ban list in Go Battle League. This cup overlaps with a IRL tournament, and then there's this talk of limited metas coming to the championship series. So again, it's all speculation. We're going to see what actually turns out, but it sounds pretty interesting. There's two more things we want to touch on before we wrap up. The first is if you want to listen to your actual sound effects when you're playing at a tournament, you have to bring USB-A headphones in order to do so. USB-A is not something that we are very familiar with. It's a kind of an older connection style, but I do think there are going to be tons of people with converters and with whatever other adjustments that they can make. And there are USB-A to USB-C adapters. I will say that. But yeah, if you like game sounds, bring your USB-A headphones. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then finally, this is probably the third hottest debated topic: Swiss at select Go tournaments. This feels like, if I could sum this up, I would say that Swiss is good for players, but not necessarily that good for viewership. I don't know if you agree, disagree,
Yeah,
or what do you think?
yeah. I think like with the Swiss announcement, I think this is also one of those may could eventually legalize type of non-committal just like teaser of a thing that may be coming. I don't think there's anything concrete as to when we will see Swiss implemented for Pokemon Go. But yeah, I
Mhm.
would be with you there. I think it's very easy and very exciting also for the viewer to just always know what's at stake. And a double elimination bracket just provides that. Whereas, like, oh, this person is now 5-1 in Swiss. Like, that's pretty good. But
Yeah.
what does it mean? I feel as if that kind of may get lost in that change. So I think at the end of the day, the players come first, and I know a lot of the players have been calling for Swiss with some urgency for a couple of years now. So I think it's overall a positive change. But yeah, it's a challenge for you guys, like for the casters to still keep it exciting. I'm sure you're up to the task, but
Yeah.
it's I don't know whether this is something that we'll see this year or this season even, but yeah, I think overall it's something that the player base wanted, and therefore it's a good change.
Yeah, just to give you an idea of what production is like for one of these regionals, we have a very ambitious producer. Obviously, a lot of people in the community already know Daniel Ziniri. He's very eclectic, right? Can be outlandish at times, but he always sets really big goals for the stream. For example, at Worlds, he was saying, I want to set a new record for the number of battles that we show on stream in a single day. And I think it was either like 27 or 29 different pairs or something like that, something gargantuan in terms of actual battles played. And with double elimination, we're able to do that because we're able to just kind of pull pairs that are ready to go and then just kind of move through them. But when you're looking at something like a Swiss tournament where rounds kind of move in lockstep together, it becomes a lot more difficult because then you have to have everyone finish before you can go to the next round. And essentially, the best way that I've seen that we can actually execute that is to have two pairs for each round. And you budget about 30 minutes each for each of those pairs to get on stage, to battle, to conclude, to switch over, get on stage, battle, conclude, and then you move to the next round. But logistically, it is a bit of a tougher challenge. And you would get Well, if you have 7 rounds in a single day, I guess that'd be 14 pairs. You wouldn't get nearly as many pairs as you would for double elimination, but I do think it would be a lot better for the players. So if you're attending a smaller event, whether it's Puerto Rico or if you're attending an event in South Africa or any of these other smaller ones that are in the growing phase, you might be in a Swiss style bracket. So definitely keep an eye out for that this season. Final thing, ZZ, what regionals have already been announced, and how may the schedule for the regional tournaments have meaningfully changed from last season? There are a couple of locations I'm really excited for. Las Vegas in November, from November 14th to the 16th. Viva Las Vegas. That is going to be the same weekend as Wild Area Global, which that's going to be a
Oh,
crazy event. If you're in the
yeah.
tournament playing Wild Area, in the tournament playing Wild Area, no sleep in Nevada that weekend. I'm also interested to see that Mexico has 3 regionals. And I have a hard time pronouncing this one all the time. Querétaro is in April from the 4th to the 5th. And we also have Merida and Monterrey, if I'm not mistaken. Plus, in Mexico, we're getting a safari zone in Cancun, if I'm not mistaken. So there's so many things going on in Mexico. Are there any events or schedule changes that you think are meaningful?
So one another North American one that I want to shout out is that the Pacific Northwest is getting Seattle this time around.
Yes.
So I guess this may replace Portland, but it's certainly a location that it feels like a destination, a place that people would travel to. I know a lot of folks that are really excited about Seattle becoming a place where Pokemon is played. And yeah, even though I will not be there, like my NA tournament this season is going to be Pittsburgh. I love that all of those, like without wanting to disrespect any of the previous host cities of these tournaments, um, if the city itself has some character, I feel like the
Mhm.
event itself is kind of easy to model around that a little bit, like in a similar fashion as we have um, just like the themed merch for world competitions. We can have like casters leaning into the vibe of a place, and I feel like with Las Vegas, especially, but also with Seattle, a bunch of big names are being ticked off in North America. And there's also changes in Europe that I personally really enjoy. For example, nothing against Dortmund. It was very convenient for me to get to, but that has been replaced with Frankfurt, which is the very first regional of the season and one that I will attend. Then we are getting the Prague Regional Championship. We are getting going to the Czech Republic for the first time in April. And another change that has been made to the European schedule is that the previous Utrecht special event is no more. Instead, we get the Utrecht Regional Championship. So,
Oh,
upgraded from a special event, we can earn prize money in the Netherlands now. Um, so yeah, that's another positive change made to the European calendar, and I'll not be at all of the events, but I'll probably be at most of them. So
mhm.
it's gonna be an exciting season for sure.
Interesting. I didn't even realize that, but that's such an important distinction because the special championships, to your point, did not award prize money in previous iterations. So, wow. All right, that's a good upgrade. One last thing I did want to mention about the regional schedule. We've seen Perth, we've seen Melbourne, we've seen Brisbane, but we are actually getting a regional in New Zealand for the first time in a while. That's going to be Auckland, New Zealand, from January 24th to 25th. I just looked at flights, CZ, and for a cool $1,000, I could fly to Auckland, and that is so tempting because that is the
I
location where Lord of the
was
Rings was filmed.
I was genuinely considering it because
Yeah.
I when I travel, then I also I travel with people or two people, and this would be another destination where like I know I would have company if I went there, and yeah, I don't know whether it's worth it. It would not be just for the event; it would be for New
Yeah.
Zealand and using the event as an excuse to go there. But yeah, let's see where people will find me this season. It's certainly going to be multiple continents.
Exactly. And if you listened to last week's episode, you remember that ZZ said he's going to every single regional this year.
Every
So
single one.
Every single one. You'll see him in Frankfurt, and then he'll fly over to Monterrey to compete there, and then he'll fly back to Frankfurt for
Yes.
Championship Sunday, and then back to Monterrey for Championship
I really
Sunday
hope
there
I
as
have a
well.
late call time in Monterrey because otherwise I may be cutting it close, but I'm optimistic.
Well, I do think that this year, I know we always have a pretty good, um, we always have a pretty good vibe. We have good energy going into the new seasons, but this season really does feel special. I mean, this is the 10-year anniversary for Pokemon Go, 5 years in the Championship Series. 30 years for Pokemon as a brand. I mean, this is a big, big year, and I can't wait to see what other changes come because things are moving in the right direction. It takes time, it's gradual. Things like Swiss, Go Battle League leaderboard points, limited metas, meta updates that are actually meaningful and not just boom burst slapped on everything, to quote my friend ZZ. These things are all happening and it takes time. It's slower than we would like, but I do think progress should be recognized where it is present. But that being said, it's been a really good episode. We're about an hour 45. So if you listened to all this so far, thank you so much. Make sure to join our Grimmsnarl giveaway. And I guess we can open it to closing thoughts. Anything that we forgot to mention or that we should point out before we close things up.
I think we actually got through a lot today. We may have to revise some points after the first events have been played, but that is something for next week to do.
I agree. I agree. So we're getting right back into the swing of things. This is episode 1 of season 3 of the Show 6 podcast. We will have our Monterey and Frankfurt recaps where we will talk about meta, team building, how things actually shook out, and as ZZ alluded to, make some revisions on some of our predictions because we're never exactly right as much as we would like to be. But ZZ, it was incredible. Always a pleasure, my friend. I'm really excited for this upcoming season of the Championship Series. It's bigger. It's better than ever. I already have my sights on Worlds. And yeah, maybe next time we'll talk about some personal goals as well. After we get this first tournament under our belt, we'll talk about what you and I are going to set out to do this season, which I think is going to be really exciting for people to hear as well. So,
Yes, yes.
sounds good, my friend. Great work as always. And we'll see you all in the next one. Thank you for listening.